Did anyone else see that, or was that just me? Hey guys, how's everyone doing? I know it's been 2 months, which actually isn't that long considering some of my past upload gaps, but anyway, I'm back with what looks to be the final batch of Batman villains, for now. Just to be clear, this definitely isn't going to be the last video on Batman. I'll still be making videos documenting my progress on the comic, and who knows, maybe there will be more villains to come. I know I didn't actually get to design all the villains I wanted to. I really wanted to take a crack at characters like Professor Pig, Anarchy, Reaper, etc. But unfortunately, as much as I'd like to take a crack at every character under the sun, I am still trying to make a coherent story, and I'm just one little guy. As always, if you haven't checked out the original video, do it, because I'm not explaining the premise for the 6th time. Those who know, know. Oh yeah, and Happy New Year. Without any further ado, let's begin. Oh, Killer Moth, how incredibly excited I've been to get to you. Oh, what's that? You wanna know why? Because I love pathetic characters! Don't get me wrong, I love incredibly cool and threatening villains. That's why a majority of the villains in the comic are just that. But you can never go wrong with a good old-fashioned loser every once in a while, and Killer Moth is exactly that. He's a wannabe, a coward, a fraud, and my Pookie. I'm so normal about characters like this, guys. Trust. Killer Moth is one of the more obscure Batman characters, so before we get into what I changed about the character, I believe a brief introduction for him is in order. Killer Moth, or Torii Walker, is basically just a deranged Batman kinny. Unlike most villains, Torii doesn't have a sad, disturbing backstory or some screwed up motivation for why he decided to become a villain. He actually lived a fairly normal life. Bro was just bored. Like, you know those guys that are constantly like, if I was in the zombie apocalypse, I'd totally kick zombie ass, bro. But you know for a fact that if the zombie apocalypse started tomorrow, they'd be the first to go? Yeah, he's basically that, but with robbing banks. In all seriousness, the real reason he became a villain is probably just because he wanted to be something, but in my opinion, that kind of makes it worse for him. Like, he gets so obsessed with being Batman's ultimate nemesis that he pours, like, all of his life savings into copying his whole style, costume, weapons, even his stupid car, expecting to make the money back from, you know, crime. Thing is, he sucks at crime, so just ends up in tons of debt. He is literally the character ever. Right off the bat, I knew I didn't really want to change much about his story at all. I think in the case of this character specifically, less is more, so I don't want to just add stuff that gives his character more depth like I usually would, because I think he truly thrives on simplicity, at least motivation and backstory wise. I do have plans for where his story goes in the future that is a bit more complicated, but obviously for spoiler reasons I won't go into that. My main thing I wanted to focus on was his design, and I had basically one note: make it look bad. One very important thing I like to take into account when designing hero and villain costumes is that a lot of the time there's a good chance the character has designed it themselves, which always makes it easier to reflect that person's personality through their design. It allows me to really think about what was going through that character's head when designing the costume. So obviously the only logical way to go with this design was to just make it look as arse as possible. The helmet is chipped and made of cheap metal. The cape and material his costume is made of is horribly impractical and create a dreadful silhouette. His shorts are belted way too high up to the point when they're probably inside him. His logo looks like absolutely nothing. His color palette is disgusting, and did I forget to mention that he doesn't even remotely resemble a moth? It was shockingly fun to basically take everything I've learned over the years about good character design and just completely throw it out of the window. I'm proud of me. Out of costume, I basically decided to make him look like every white bisexual man that plays guitar. I gave him a brown spiky mullet, a pathetic excuse for a mustache, big bug eyes because, you know, bug, and big thick glasses to accentuate them even further. If by chance someone is watching that looks like this, because I know you're out there, I'm sorry, but also no I'm not, because low-key, I've looked like this. For the chibi version, I tried to basically make the costume look kinda better, but not by much. At some point, I want Killer Moth and Firefly to team up for some ungodly reason, just like they have in the comics, because I truly love their dynamic. But obviously, because Firefly works with, you know, fire, he'll basically demand that Killer Moth lets him design a fireproof version of his suit with the condition that he keeps the color palette, which he reluctantly agrees to and just ends up making it look better. Here is the finished design for Drury Walker / Killer Moth.
We are just typical normal humans who got lost in the middle of our normal, everyday human lives. Nailed it. The real thing is much more personal and thoughtful, and I really hope you like it, because if you don't, I will just be crushed. Yeah, I literally just said that. Oh, that's what I was hoping you'd say. Cool, cool, cool. Cool, cool, cool. What a day.
I think I've mentioned in a previous video that the Court of Owls are going to play a rather large part in the comic as a whole, but I don't believe I've mentioned that the one and only original character, aside from a few background characters, and maybe Tabitha and Lux if you count a name and pronoun change as a new character, is the leader of the Court of Owls. She goes by a few different names. Some just call her the Court Leader, some call her Lady Shannon. The main one that stuck was Celine. Her real name was lost centuries ago when her ancestors buried it and took on new identities, founders of the court and, in turn, the new Gotham, and years later, their plans continue to live on through her. I am aware that Thomas and Martha Wayne have been stated in the comics to have been members of the court before they died, and I'm also aware that Bruce himself and several members of the Bat family have been in the court. That's not entirely the route I want to go down. I don't think there's been a stated leader of the Court of Owls, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I liked the idea of the group of people maintaining a hierarchy in Gotham, having a hierarchy of their own within the group, and she is at the top. For that reason, I wanted to make her look luxurious and kind of ethereal. I obviously wanted her features to be kind of owl-like, and I wanted her to have this eerie, bird-like stare while not looking outright creepy, and I think I managed to capture that pretty well. I gave her these elegant, defined curls that she has tied up into this 1800s inspired bun. For her clothes, I wanted a mix between modern high fashion, Rococo, and Greek goddess. I gave her this long cape sash thing that kind of mimics owl wings, paired with this elegant dress and, of course, her owl mask. For the chibi version, I leaned way more into high fashion and gave her this weird coat thing. I don't even know what it is, but I wanted it to mimic feathers and I like it. Her design was specifically inspired by a barn owl, so for her color palette I used a combination of creamish white, brown, black, and gold to tie everything together. I know I wasn't really able to go as in-depth with explaining her character due to the nature of her involvement with the story, so I hope that these little crumbs of information are enough to keep you all satiated until the comic finally releases, which probably won't be for a while, but what can you do? Here is the finished design for Lady Shannon / Celine.
I'm impressed by humanity's ability to survive in the wild. Where else would a being as fragile as a human live? I'm surprised that a human being is capable of understanding how I feel. You know, I really shouldn't be here, but I'm glad I came back one last time. I can save one last piece of her legacy.
Killer Croc is a very interesting character in my eyes that I find is often one of the more overlooked villains in Batman. Sure, he's used a lot, but he's very often either portrayed as a mindless monster or an angry, violent grunt. Not to mention his most notable appearance on the big screen. I wanted to go a bit of a different route for him. First, I really wanted to pair him up with Ratcatcher primarily as the two co-leaders of the Metahuman Rebellion. Not only can they both bond over being cast out from society and basically tortured, both due to being very physically altered metahumans, but also their dynamic is very interesting and subversive, which leads me to my next point. I wanted to make Killer Croc intelligent. Killer Croc has basically been boxed into this idea of a terrifying monster by the people of Gotham, being seen as a beast to be feared rather than an actual person with wants and interests, just like anyone else. People know the Killer Croc, the sewer-dwelling cryptid of Gotham that lurks in the shadows waiting for its prey. They don't know Waylon Jones, the metahuman with a collection of magazines on botany that he's stolen from a shop just above one of his drains. The Waylon Jones that is smart and cautious, only sticking to the shadows because he knows he's less likely to be caught. The Waylon Jones that only frightens away anyone who comes across him because he himself is scared of being found and taken away. But after all the years that he's only been known as a monster, he genuinely begins to believe it, because it's the only thing the world will allow him to be, and if he can't change people's minds, he may as well use his reputation to his advantage. Waylon Jones is a victim of inherent bias, which is why for my depiction I find it so crucial to make him feel as human as possible. For his design, I was initially very nervous because I am really bad at drawing anthropomorphic characters. Some Killer Croc designs depict him as a more humanoid figure with scales, whereas others just go full crocodile, so I tried to strike up a balance by giving him a snout but having it be shorter than the average crocodile. I added a lot of spikes to his head and gave him these glowing yellow eyes. For his main outfit, I wanted to lean into the idea of a cryptid, and I also wanted it to feel more swamp-like. I shrouded his figure in this ratty cloak, and on his back I had him wearing this pile of a bunch of different weeds and gunk to both tie into the swamp-like elements and add a bit more green to his design. Here is the finished design for Waylon Jones / Killer Croc.
I wandered around for a bit. Worked a lot of jobs where it didn't matter what you looked like. You must have heard about me. I left plenty of people scared and crying, itching to tell someone what happened to them. Some of them must have made it to you. And there were others. Others of skin and hunger.
So, I watched some of the Suicide Squad movie, the second one, you know, the one I said I didn't want to watch. I love Polka-Dot Man. I knew two things going into my design for Abner Krill. One, I wanted him to be a member of the Metahuman Rebellion, and two, I wanted him to be really sad. In Gotham, there are two kinds of metahumans, only one of which being properly documented. The first is an A-type metahuman, metahumans that were born with a mutation at birth due to their parents' exposure to the metahuman gene. These metahumans have been the only ones documented until recently, some characters under this category being the Signal, Ratcatcher, Red Hood, and Killer Croc. The second is B-type metahumans. Metahumans that were born human, but due to some kind of incident or experiment, were mutated later in life. Poison Ivy is one example, becoming a metahuman after her fatal encounter with the metahuman plant. Clayface is another, her physical body becoming warped and unstable after the experiment performed by Hugo Strange. And Polka-Dot Man, after a barrage of experiments conducted on him by his own mother. What started as a common skin condition caused by stress eventually turned into the polka dot mutation that works very similarly to how it does in Suicide Squad. In case it wasn't obvious, I took a lot of inspiration from Suicide Squad when reimagining this character because their writing was really good, which still shocks me to say. For this reason, not much has really changed about his backstory, and I even took some inspiration from that version of the character for the design, with the black hair and color palette and just pathetic sad eyes. However, I did make a few changes. While Abner is incredibly insecure about his skin condition, having access to his skin is kind of integral to his power in combat. So I gave his jacket and trousers a few zips to allow him easy access to his skin during a fight without having to constantly show it. While I kept the polka dot pattern against the white parts of his outfit, I used them a little more sparingly, mostly decorating the places he usually uses to attack from, like his arms and his legs, to kind of draw attention to that a little better. I gave him a jacket, cause God knows I love a good jacket, and a helmet to both hide his identity and just his face in general, cue or sound effect from the crowd. I also gave him this little patch with the metahuman symbol on the front, something I plan on adding to most of the metahuman character designs in the future, but high-key forgot. Here is the finished design for Abner Krill / Polka-Dot Man.
I look like a smart boy in my outfit.
I was more hoping that I was dead. Oh no, it's the funeral. It's the funeral, sorry.
I hate the clipboard, and I hate this play.
Yeah. I suppose I do. Oh, yeah. Thanks for that.
And there we have pretty much all the characters I'm planning on reimagining. Again, for now. I apologize for how long it took for this one to get out. The end of term assignments are coming up in England, which means a truckload of work for me, but I have a few more videos on the way, all of which I'm pretty excited about, and I shall also be working ceaselessly on both the Batman comic itself and various updates on my progress. Again, this is not the last video I'll be making on Batman, because I am genuinely shocked by how many of you love to hear me yap about this series, and who am I to deprive you of such a thing? Thank you to everyone for watching. Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Oh, also, before I go, let me know if you want me to make an outro to these things, like, you know, an actual outro. I've gotten a couple pieces of fan art recently, so let me know if you want to see some of that at the end of my videos, or just like actually something other than me just saying bye and the video abruptly ending. I need something, alright? It's always so abrupt. Anyway, bye.